Well, welcome, Kevin. I am going to guess that you are here because you want to have more joy and fulfillment in your life. Usually I'm like, raise your hands if you do, because normally there's more than one person. um, so in this workshop, we're going to talk about personal destiny and what the heck is it? What is personal destiny? And do you believe in it? So do you believe in a personal destiny? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So our passions are like the clues to our personal destiny. They're the keys that kind of open the door to that personal destiny, whatever it may be. And they unlock your purpose. So first of all, I want to thank you for saying yes to yourself and being here today. And you know a little bit about me because you've come to some of the other classes and such.
Yeah.
But just to share the passion test portion of me, I discovered the passion test about 9 years ago. Almost exactly. I had a Facebook memory come up that I had just taken my first passion test 9 years ago. And before I had even taken it, I knew I was going to become a certified passion test facilitator because when I was at a networking event and I sat down to next to this woman. We exchanged business cards and I was doing something completely different at the time, in-home wine tasting, which was also fun. And I read her title, Certified Passion Test Facilitator, and I got chills. I had this full body knowing, and I'd never heard of it before, but I knew I had to know more about it. So she and I sat down for coffee a few weeks later and she told me about it and I signed up to be a certified facilitator right then, even though I didn't know where I'd be able to do the certification because I was about to move. I'm not sure I was about to move yet, but things were really shifting in my life. I was still married. We were in Grand Rapids and there was just a lot of constant change. And regardless, I never looked back. I ended up getting certified a couple of years later. And now I've been doing this for the last 7 years and it's just amazing.
Wow.
So what you'll learn today, and at some point I'll probably share screen, but I'm not going to, if it were a live workshop, I'd have it behind me and there's 2 focal points, but I'm just going to pop up the most important screens for today. But what you're going to learn is clarity. So you're going to gain clarity around those things that are most important to you right now. You'll discover your passions for the first time. You'll get a lot of information, especially on how to start living those passions today. So it's not like you have to wait a week. You can start immediately. And you will learn the one secret that guarantees a passionate, fulfilling life. And so much more as long as you open yourself to the experience. And I trust that you will.
Absolutely. I trust you.
So can you name some well-known people who were clearly or are clearly living their passions?
Some well-known people
you can think of.
Yeah, the guy that runs Tesla.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, what is his name? Now that I lost it. That dude. Yeah. He has a really crazy name.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not going to think of it.
Let's see. Anybody else? Well-known people that are just really living out their passion.
Living or dead. Like they could be passed by now, but.
Tamara Zoner.
Tamara Zoner is. I am.
I put you in that category.
I absolutely am.
I definitely put you in the category. Well, I'd have to, I tend to be more of a thinker, so I don't always not top of mind, but if I think about things, and then eventually, things will come to mind, or maybe the next day.
Yeah.
So, okay.
That's okay.
I got 2 that kind of come to mind right now.
Oprah Winfrey, Gandhi, Bill Gates, even, Mother Teresa, she's a big one. And so all of these people living their passions and doing it very differently. So the question here is, Kevin, could you be a better Tamara than Tamara?
Yeah, no.
No. and neither
Mhm.
could I be a better Kevin than Kevin. So we're
Yeah.
all unique. We're all bringing something special to the table. And even if there are a million of us doing the same exact thing, we're all going to do it differently in our own beautiful and unique ways. And so our passions are usually part of our gifts as well. So
Uh-huh.
um, they're again clues to our gifts. Like, whatever is
Yeah.
making us come alive and feel on purpose is typically what happens when we get in touch with our passions. So I'll just share briefly how the passion test came to be. There is a book called The Passion Test, and the process came before the book, but the author is Janet Bray Atwood and her partner, Chris Atwood. They're actually business partners and best friends, and were once married but are no longer. And Janet came up with this process when she was in kind of a dead end job. Have you ever had one of those?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, most of us have it at this point in our lives, right? And she enjoyed her job. She was a meditation instructor, but she was also living out of her car because she couldn't afford an apartment. And this was in Silicon Valley at the height of the dot-com era. So her clients were really, really wealthy. And one day one of them like caught her sneaking into the apartment complex across from her meditation center to use the gym for a shower. And they were like, Janet, what are you doing? I have, a position available at my work as a disk drive engineer recruiter. You're great with people. Why don't you come and work for me? You'll make millions of dollars.
Mhm.
And Janet heard millions of dollars and was like, oh, okay, I'll take that job. And so she did, and she started really excited. And every day at this place, when someone would recruit a disk drive engineer, they'd ring a little bell and everybody in the room would be like, yay, woohoo, you're making money. And they're all making money and everybody's happy. And a few days went by, maybe even a few weeks went by, and the bell never rang for Janet. And within a few weeks, she was kind of walking in like, oh, geez, not working out. Because what she had heard was that millions of dollars, but she hadn't considered what it would really take. She didn't know anything about disk drives or recruiting or tech at all. She's very much like me, not a tech person. She can figure it out when she needs to, but that really wasn't what she was good at.
Yeah.
And so after a certain time, she was just like, oh, miserable and not knowing what to do. So she was still going to her meditation center every day and meditating.
Mm-hmm.
She was just asking for a sign and praying for a sign. And one day as she came out of her meditation, she saw a sign on the wall, and it said, say yes to success. And it was this seminar that was happening by Deborah Poneman, who is one of the first personal development speakers like ever in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And Janet thought, oh, I need to go to that. So she called in sick to work. No one minded. And she went to this seminar. And while she was watching Deborah Poneman on the stage, she had this first insight, kind of aha moment, where she wasn't paying quite so much attention to what Deborah was saying, but how Deborah was being, how she was showing up, right, on that stage. And Janet thought, damn, I want to do that. And then she thought, I don't know anything about personal development, so I've got to figure out how to get this woman to hire me and teach me everything she knows. So she sat and she listened and she continued, started paying attention. And what she heard Deborah say was that at that time, of the 100 most successful people in America, they all had one thing in common. And that was that they had identified the 5 things that mattered the most to them personally and professionally. And they were living those things. And Janet thought, well, gosh, if I could figure out the 5 things that matter the most to me, then I could be successful too. And so those were kind of the first 2 pieces that started her on this path of creating the passion test. And she ended up following, well, I'll tell you this part of the story. she went back to that meditation center after that seminar, and when she ran into one of her old clients, and they were like, "What's up, Janet? How have you been?" And she just kind of exploded with excitement, like, "I saw this speaker and that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be that, and I just don't know how, because I don't know anything about personal development, but I'm going to get her to hire me." And and she was just so excited, and she went back the next day and meditated again. And as she was meditating, she started to feel paper falling on her head. And when she looked up, it was the same woman from the day before dropping $100 bills on her head.
No.
And she just looked at Janet and said, "Merry Christmas, Janet, go live your dreams." And so Janet was able to use that money to follow Deborah on her 5-city tour around the country doing the seminar. And as it progressed, she didn't tell Deborah what she was doing. She just kept showing up at the seminars. And after the third one, Deborah started just scanning the audience looking for Janet. And at the fourth one, she looked at the audience, found Janet, and said, "All right, you're hired." So they ended up working together for many, many years. They still run a lot of programs together where they're both speakers, and they're amazing. Deborah's amazing. So Janet didn't know how she was going to do that, but she knew the what. And so your passions are really the what.
Yeah.
We're going to get even clearer on those. Let's see. The other thing she heard during that seminar was that in the United States, only, let's see, 20% of working Americans were happy and fulfilled in their jobs. 20%. And that statistic is a little tiny bit better today, but not that much. It's like 2.5 out of 10 people are happy and fulfilled with the work they do. So, we passion test facilitators really work to change that on its head and to teach people like you how to identify what matters the most to them so that you can be living more happily.
Yeah.
So the passion test is this very simple yet powerful way to clarify what's most important to you in your life. And there's a wonderful quote by T. Harv Eker, who is the author of multiple books, but The Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. And he says, "Clarity is power, the power to create the life you choose." And in the passion test, Janet says, when you are clear, what you want will show up in your life, and only to the extent that you're clear.
Okay.
So we want to begin this process today of getting really clear, and you'll take this first most important step through the passion test. And it's important to remember too that clarity is a process. So not everyone starts with really deep, meaningful passions. Sometimes they're quite on the surface, and all of it is good. All of it is okay. We start where we're at, and that is all that we can do. Okay. There's this beautiful quote, and I might just practice my share screen and bring it up for you. Let me bring up my slideshow. Here it is. Present. Okay. Now I can share. This is one of my favorite quotes. Share screen, Safari. That is not it.
It looks pretty busy.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Curving back on myself, I create again and again. And this is from the Bhagavad Gita, which is an ancient text, one of the oldest spiritual texts to exist. And what do you think that means? Curving back on myself, I create again and again.
Oh, let's see. We'll just, I'd say, looking at yourself, your own thoughts, behaviors, desires and stuff, not so much looking to other people or books or whatever, but more, let's say, being present with yourself, could be journaling, and out of that, coming with new desires, directions, how to move forward, how to create, new things in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Mhm.
It really is about everything first being created inside of our minds and then being brought into physical existence, right?
Yeah.
Everything in the room you're in, maybe not the beach, but
Yeah.
everything in that room you're in, that chair you're sitting on, the computer you're looking at, the paper you're writing on, or the Word document, everything around us was first just an idea in someone's mind, and then they brought it into the physical world through action.
Right.
So our thoughts are creating our reality, and most people aren't really paying attention to them.
Mhm.
You learned in the happiness class that, we have 60,000 thoughts a day on average, and most of them are repeated and most of them are negative. And so,
Yeah, I know.
right? So we want to really start to pay attention to our thoughts and put more attention on what we want instead of on what we don't. And we do that through some awareness and also through meditation and silence and mindfulness, really allowing that inner voice to speak. And in the passion test, we say what you believe in your heart of hearts is what you create from within yourself. So we can identify what we want or think that we want, but it's really our beliefs that are creating around us. So
Yeah.
if I think that I want, the most amazing relationship, deep and meaningful, full and loving, and I believe that relationships are doomed, they're not safe, if that's what I truly believe, then I'm going to continue to create unhealthy patterns in my relationships.
Yeah.
So we really have to go deep and excavate our real beliefs. Okay. So Jack Canfield, are you familiar with him?
Yeah,
Oh,
he did a couple of his books. I forgot
yeah.
what are they called?
These are the big ones are the Chicken Soup for the Soul series.
Yeah, I got a couple of
So,
those. Yeah.
so many of those. I think there are like, I don't know, 500 million of those books sold now.
Wow.
Something crazy like that. So he and Janet were both at an event together when she was still developing the passion test. And she,
Oh, by the way, never mind. I couldn't see you. I could only see this quote, but I opened it up so I could see you. But you're small,
I am
and the quote's really big.
I will stop sharing now and come
Okay.
back to this when I want.
All
Okay.
right. Yeah, there you go. That's
Okay.
better for me.
Okay, good. So Janet saw Jack at this event, and she called him up on the last day and she said, "Hey, Jack, I'm developing this thing called the passion test. I'd really love to take you through it." Jack's already this incredibly successful person who appears to be living his passions, full on. And he said, "Well, I'd love to, but I'm leaving for the airport now." And she was like, "Well, I'll just ride in the car with you if that's okay."
Yeah.
So he said, "Sure, crazy Janet, come on with me." So she gave him this passion test, and he made his list, as you'll do in a few minutes, in a little bit. And he realized that nowhere in his life was one of the things that were on his list, having a network of spiritual leaders. And so he actually took this list and created the Transformational Leadership Council, which is a whole bunch of spiritual leaders, including Janet and Chris Atwood, including Marcy Shimoff, the Happy for No Reason, Michael Bernard Beckwith. He's a reverend of Agape. He's amazing. And just John Gray, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and just all of these leaders in personal development and spirituality, and created this council, which before he took the passion test with Janet was nowhere in his life and not even on his mind. And so,
Yeah.
through this process, Jack Canfield brought something incredible into his life. And that's just to demonstrate, like, if this can work for Jack Canfield, it can work for anyone. It can work for you. It works for me all the
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
So some of Jack's other passions were like having fun with everything he did and traveling first class all around the country. And really, there are so many different passions. So I'm just going to start to share with you some other people's passions so that you get an idea of how diverse your list could be.
Okay.
So some other passions are living in a beautiful home, maybe on the beach,
Mhm. Mhm.
writing best-selling mystery novels,
Mhm.
working in a nurturing environment with lots of light and plants, enjoying perfect health with lots of energy, stamina, and vitality, spending lots of quality time with my family, working with a supportive team who share my values, confidently experiencing life. So those are some good ones. Let's see, what are some other ones? Being recognized and paid abundantly for my talents, living an inspired and creative life, inspiring others to reach their full potential, enjoying having a business or career that keeps me motivated and mentally active, enjoying close quality friendships. So it can really be anything. And what we do is we, in a few moments, you're going to do this. We make a list of 10 to 12, no more than 12, 10 to 12 things that you want to be, do, feel, or have in your life. And we want to cover all of these different areas. We want to cover career, health, relationships, service, spirituality, fun, physical, and environment. So the world around us. And what you're going to do is you're going to complete the sentence: when my life is ideal, I am. When my life is ideal, I am. And so here are kind of the directions, right? You're going to complete that sentence 10 or 12 times. And as you write, you want to write in the positive present tense as if it's already happening in your
Mhm.
life.
Right.
If you get stuck and you can only think of what you don't want in your life, that's okay. That happens to a lot of people, especially the first time. And then you just want to turn that around. Like, I'm always switching phrasing to the affirmative. So if you think to yourself, like, I don't want to fight with my partner anymore or with my boss or whatever, then you could say instead, I want a happy, harmonious relationship with this person.
Right.
Right. So turn the negative around into what you do want, because that's where we
Mhm.
want to put our attention. Have courage to put what you really, really want, even if you think that's not possible, or I can't
Mhm.
get that because of that. Here's where we suspend our disbelief and we play in the arena of the heart. And sometimes it's helpful to sort of tap into your childhood dreams or your young adult dreams that maybe you set aside for more likely. I remember I wanted to be in theater, and my mom was like, well, you better get a job that can pay the bills first. So all of
Mhm.
those things that you really want in your life, and your logical, rational brain says, no, you probably shouldn't. Let yourself play there and write those things down, because you
Okay.
can create anything you want in life, anything at all.
Mhm.
And so this is not where you write down what you think you can get to, what you'll settle for, or what would be okay for you.
Okay.
Where you write down like the shoot for the stars, wildest dreams, best possible life imaginable. Okay. If you think of writing money, like a lot of people will try to write, because then I'll be like, no,
Yeah.
I want financial freedom. Ask yourself instead, what do I want it for? So
Mhm.
what will the money get me? And then you write that thing down instead. So if I, like Jack, if I want to travel first class all around the world whenever I feel like it, that's what the money will get me. Or for me, I want to dine in 5-star restaurants that overlook the biggest cities in the world. That's like one of my dreams. It doesn't make my list usually, but I love it. So that's what I would want money for, or to provide an education for my children, or whatever the money would get you. That's what you write down instead. No judgment, no self-judgment, right? We don't get to judge. You get to write down whatever the heck you want to. Let's see. Okay. Any questions on the process of making your list?
No, I'm pretty good. I could probably spend a couple hours on this, but I'm not going to get a couple of hours.
No, you're going to get about 15 minutes.
Okay.
And because passion comes from the heart and not the head, I like to help you tap into that heart before you start writing. Okay. And so if you're comfortable, just like putting down anything you're holding on to, moving your keyboard aside, and maybe closing your eyes and just get into your most comfortable meditation posture, then I'll just take you through a very brief meditation and remind you again that passion comes from the heart, not the head. And so go ahead and just take a few deeper breaths, just a little deeper and longer than your usual breath. And do a scan of your body, releasing any tension that you might be holding on to right now. And I'll just talk for a moment while you breathe and release. We tend to live in our heads. We also tend to live in the future, the past, and rarely right now. So right now, take one deep breath. And as you exhale, let everything out. Take another deep breath. Maybe pause at the top, just letting it gather, letting all of your energy gather into this one place, and then blow it out, releasing any stuck or stagnant energy that you've been holding. And then one more deep cleansing breath. Just releasing it all the way, leaving nothing left in. And now, keeping your eyes closed, maybe you rest your hands on your heart and maybe tap that heart area a few times just to wake it up. And imagine a beam of glowing light just above your head, passing into your crown and filling your face with this warm golden light. This light is full of love. It's like a warm embrace as it passes down into your head, your neck, your shoulders. You see it within you and all around you, and you feel its warm, loving light filling you, your back, your front, all the way down into your legs, your feet, and even beyond the ground into the center of the earth. Feel yourself embraced by this warm, loving light, and notice how it's grounding you from above and below, grounding you into your center, into your power, into this moment. And really feel the warmth of that love. Now take another deep breath. And from this place of grounded, centered love, you may open your eyes when you're ready and begin making your list. And I'll give you 10 to 15 minutes. And if you finish sooner, just let me know. Those are your top 5 passions now. And now I'm going to tell you the formula for making this your life. So the passion test formula is intention, attention, no tension, or of course, I like to flip it to total ease. So
What was the
intention,
next one? Total what?
total ease.
Total ease. Okay.
Yeah. So intention, attention, total ease. So an intention is consciously stating what you choose to create in your life. And you have just done that by identifying these 5 passions, right? So those are your intentions. So we use passion and intention interchangeably. Attention, what we put our attention on grows stronger in our lives. So here's where we want to be putting our attention on what we want and not on what we don't. And your life will become like that on which you put your attention. Now, action engages attention. And so this is where we do the things to bring about this ideal life. And we do them from inspired action. We do them in a way that is like, okay, I've done everything I can do, and now I let go and let God. And then we sit back with no tension or total ease, right? We've taken all of the action that we can think of to take. And this is where we then allow synchronicity to occur. We allow God to partner with us and create with us, because as you know, God is unlimited and our minds are limited. So we also say this, we also create this opportunity for this list or something better. So something even better, because we could have this list and be so set on it that this is the life I'm going to create, but God might come along and go, I can one up you. Here you go.
Right.
So we want to leave room for this or something better. So I like to give an example of the formula in action. And so
Sure.
this is an old story now, because this is my cat is like desperately wanting to get on my lap right now. So this story is from years and years ago when I hadn't even become a certified facilitator when this story started. But it was when my kids were really little and I was a completely different person, and I was yelling at them a lot. I didn't even know where this yelling person was coming from, because it didn't feel like me, but suddenly they'd do something, or ow, I jumped on the lap. And I would just lose it. And at the same time, in that same time period, I was going through my life coaching certification, and I was still married and deeply unhappy, and all my anger at my husband came out on my kids because that was the
Hmm.
safer outlet, right? And yet, I'd think to myself, well, you guys don't listen unless I yell. And then I'd also think to myself, but that's baloney. This is not true. And I'm just blaming them for my own inability to pause and respond. And so I really called myself on my BS and went deeper and was like, I'm going to stop yelling at my children. And at the time I was blogging. So, I was doing parenting blogging and just kind of writing about my adventures in England and with kids and all of that. And uh, I came across another blogger who had this orange rhino challenge. And her challenge was to yell less and love more. And I was like, ooh, that's synchronicity at work. That's exactly what I need. And so it was a 30-day challenge. So you had to try to go 30 days without yelling. And so I did. And I got through a few hours on the first day and then yelled at my kids. I don't know, it was probably going to school or something, or maybe it was bedtime. I did not make it to bedtime. It was definitely probably just going. Um, and then, I had to restart a few times that day and the next day and the next day. And eventually I made it a day and eventually I made it 2 or 3 days. And like I could really see, okay, I'm yelling less. We're all loving more. Like we're happier when I'm not yelling. But I kept screwing up, right? I kept yelling. And finally, at one point, I think I started this challenge in maybe November. In January, I managed to get to 2 weeks of no yelling. 5 of those days, I was in Norway for my certification for the passion test. I wasn't even around my kids.
Yeah.
And I made it a few days after that because I was like in this glow of this amazing 4-day training process with all these amazing people. But then eventually I lost my temper again and I yelled at them. But what I learned among other things at this 4-day training was that I wasn't putting my attention on the right thing. My intention was to stop yelling, but my attention then was on yelling. And so at my passion test certification, on my list, I put experiencing a happy, harmonious family life. And one of the clearer descriptions, which we'll do in a few minutes of that, one of my markers was that I speak in loving kindness to my children.
Hmm.
And so that's what I put my attention on instead when I came home. And I put my attention on it. I took action. I actually hung orange pieces of paper with that intention and the markers all around my house.
So your children could see it too?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, look, here's my intention. Here's what I want to do. Can you support me in this? And will you help me in this? And so, and I really talked to them about how you can support me in this and how you can help me. And they were little kids, right? They were like 4 or 5 and 6 and 7, something like that, or 7 and 8 and 5, 4 or 5. And so I got them on board. I was like, hey, we're teammates, right? And I need your help. So if you see me start to get upset, like call me on it. Right. And also I'm going to share with you, like, as I discovered them, what my triggers were. And I discovered that I like to be on time, right? It's that thing we talked about at the very beginning. I like what can upset me and get me internally flustered is running late. And I had to drive them all to school like 15 minutes away because we lived in this tiny little village in England and school was away and there were no buses, like public buses, but that would have taken us hours. So, when we were running late, I would get upset and that was when I would yell. Or my middle child, she, we would butt heads and I would yell at her. I yelled at her the most. And so they started helping me and I put my attention on those things and had physical reminders in the rooms, and gradually things started to shift and I got to 30 days and I got to 60 days and I got to hundreds of days. And
Wow.
like 7 years later, yeah, it's about 7 years later, my kids don't even remember that version of me.
Wow.
They do not remember the mom that yelled. So they're like, really? You yelled at us? So I put my attention on that speaking in loving kindness and having a happy, harmonious family life. And I put all my attention on that. And then when I screwed up, because as I just told you, I did a lot, I went into this no tension or total ease. I forgave myself, right? I didn't
Mhm.
beat myself up and be like, oh, you're such a bad mom. I simply said, try again. I would apologize to my children. They were always so forgiving. And I tried again until that muscle got stronger. And then now, like, I haven't yelled at my kids in years, except to like wake up maybe.
Yeah.
And so it's this intention, attention, total ease, no tension, self-compassion, self-forgiveness, and letting God kind of be your partner in this creation process.
Yeah.
So one of the ways we put our attention on our passions, and I will send you these via email later, but we make passion cards. So it's this little template, and you can use anything. I have one that's the template. I have another one that's just a 3x5 card that hangs off my ring light with my passions on it. I keep one on my bathroom mirror. So you can use the template, or you can make your own, especially if you're creative and you like to make pretty things. I don't know.
Mhm.
You can do what you want, but we make these passion test cards, and at the top we date it, right? So that we remember when we first identified these as our top 5 passions. And then we write when my life is ideal, I am, and then we write our passions in the order they came out as our top 5. And then at the bottom, this or something better. And we put these cards in and around our environment so that we're putting our attention on these newly identified priorities of our life. You had these in the back of your mind, but now they're like on paper. This is what matters the most to me right now. And so you might recall from the area of the mind in the happiness course that our subconscious minds really like the status quo. It
Yeah.
doesn't like change. It wants everything to stay just the way it is because that feels safe. And so, if any of these passions are going to promote deep change in your life, your subconscious mind is for sure going to resist. So, by reviewing your passions a few times each day and telling your brain it's okay to make these changes, especially right when you wake up or right before bedtime, then your brain gets on board with you. Your subconscious mind relaxes and is like, okay, this is okay. It's safe to do this. And then slowly, these intentions can become your way of being, and your life
Mhm.
starts to reflect them. So, your first bit of home play is to make these passion cards. And after we finish, I'll send you an email that I always send my clients that just has all the things that we're talking about in the second half of like what you're going to do now, the action you're going to take to put your attention on your passions. Um, so, when you, yeah, now I'm going to share with you the secret, right? Are you ready for the secret that guarantees you?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the secret to guarantee a passionate, joyful, fulfilling life is that whenever you are faced with a choice, a decision, or an opportunity, choose in favor of your passions. I heard the
Mm.
other day we make something like 70,000 decisions a day. That's like in a crazy, crazy amount of decisions. We put our passion cards up in places where we often make decisions. We say by the telephone. I still say by the telephone as if it's still hanging on the wall, right? But by your computer when you're answering an email, or even on your phone as a screensaver, or in your car, places where you're contemplating your choices and
Mhm.
your options and opportunities, so that you can ask yourself, here's an opportunity, a choice, or a decision. If I say yes to this, will it move me closer to this ideal life, to my passion, or further away? And so, of course, if the answer is yes, it would move you closer to that ideal life, that passion, then you say yes. And if it is a no, then you say no. So
Okay.
it sounds simple.
Yeah.
It's not always easy in practice.
Oh yeah, it'd be very hard to put that into practice,
Yeah.
but it's a good thing to focus on.
It's a really good thing. And with practice, it gets easier, especially as you see the evidence that supports that it works. Like for me, it took maybe a year or so for me to be like, oh, I have to follow the secret because I know it works. But I didn't know it worked when I first started trying it, but then I would do it and I would get evidence to support that it works. So my story for this one is that when when I went to a passion test facilitator reunion right after I moved back to Michigan, and at that weekend event, we were given this activity of introducing ourselves to someone we didn't know, we'd never met, and then pretending it was 2 years later at the same event, and we were seeing each
Oh,
other for
okay.
the first time in those 2 years. And so I met this wonderful woman named Carol, and she told me that, this 2 years from now, she'd been doing workshop retreat or yoga retreats all over the country and incorporating her horses into those yoga retreats. And it was so amazing. And she was changing lives. And that was so beautiful. So we high-fived and I congratulated her on this amazing life that she'd created since the last time we saw each other 2 years before.
Yeah.
And then I told her how I was a speaker at that event and I was speaking all over the country about passion and like doing the same sort of thing that all the speakers on the stage that day were doing. And over the course of the rest of the weekend, every time Carol and I saw each other, we would high five, we'd congratulate, we'd step right back into each other's vision for the 2 years later. And it anchored it in for us both, right? So a few weeks after that weekend, Carol called me up and asked me to be a speaker at her yoga retreat at her condo in Melbourne, Florida. Now, for a little background, I had just left my husband, had moved home to my parents' house, had no money because he wasn't sending any support at all. And I had been being mom for many years. And I was like, oh, will it move me closer to my passion or further away? And my answer was yes, because one of my passions was to be a speaker, doing this business full time.
Mhm.
And so I said, yes. And then I thought, well, crap. How am I going to do that? But then I remembered Janet's story and this formula and the secret. Remember in Janet's story, she didn't know how she was going to follow Deborah Poneman around the country and learn everything she knew, but she knew what she wanted to do. And so I remembered that. And I remembered that the how is none of my business. The how is none of my business. I put my attention on the what, and I said yes, because that will move me closer to my passion. And then I said, okay, now I need to put my attention on this passion so I can co-create and manifest this and make it happen. So I put up on Facebook, hey, I'm a speaker at a yoga retreat in Florida. Anybody want to go with me? Because I didn't know how I was going to get there. I didn't know how I was going to afford housing. The whole weekend was free for me, but I still had to get there and stay somewhere. And so I put that up on Facebook with a little graphic that Carol had given me with my face on her beautiful beach yoga. It actually looked much like what is behind you.
Yeah.
And 3 of my friends responded. And one of them said, I'd love to go. And I have so many miles from all my traveling for work that I can cover the hotel. Boom.
Ah,
Then 2 more responded and wanted to go. And so we were all like, well, why don't we just road trip? Because flights are crazy expensive to Florida from Michigan in February. So
Yeah.
let's just drive down together. We can switch shifts. And the same friend who traveled a lot for work had this super eco-friendly, efficient car. So we decided we would just rotate driving and drive her car down there. Boom. I got my hotel. I have my, then a few days later, two of those people, the other two, were like, well, I really want to do this, and I feel like I can't quite afford the yoga retreat. I was like, well, gosh, well, we'll just do this magic thing that we're doing with the intention. So we'll set our intentions that this will happen easily. And right around that time, my now ex-husband, we were still married, came here to visit the kids, and for us to sort out our taxes. We'd been in England for a couple of years, and we were a little bit behind, and he's French. So it's complicated, right? So we went to H&R Block and got our taxes sorted out. And he said, well, since I'm not sending any money, you can just keep whatever refund we get. I said, cool. Well, I got a call from the tax preparer a few days later, and I was getting $8,000 back.
Oh my gosh.
So I called up my two friends and said, I got you covered. You can pay me back as you can pay me back, right? Like, and so it all came together, and I was sitting there going, this stuff really works, right? I had my intention, I put my attention on it, and then I sat back, relaxed, and said, no tension, total ease. I trusted the process. I used the secret and chose in favor of my passions, and it all came together like magic. And that was the first real tangible experience that I had where I was like, yeah, this works. And I've continued to use that over and over and over for all decisions, choices, and opportunities in my life. And it always works. And if it doesn't, it means I'm guided in a different direction, right? And so that's the formula, and that's the secret. And in a book called Success Built to Last, Creating a Life That Matters, they interviewed 200 people who had achieved lasting success. And that was defined as 20 years or more of success in business and whatnot. And they found that enduringly successful people developed the habit of always choosing in favor of the things that mattered the most to them, that had deep personal meaning for them, no matter what anyone else said or thought about it. So to develop success and this ideal life, you want to practice developing that habit one decision at a time. And to remember too, that habits take time to form, and they often require support. So I offer loads of support, free and paid, and you have other resources in your life also to offer support. So making sure that you have some support to practice these new ideas of intention, attention, no tension, and choosing in favor of your passions matters. Even if it's just coming to a meetup once a month or joining the Facebook group if you're on Facebook, so that you're getting this constant reminder, usually with my face attached to it, right? Okay. Any questions on any of that?
Nope.
Okay, cool. So what we're going to do now is see how present your top 5 passions are in your life today. And we're going to score them to do that. So we're going to score them from 0, being nowhere in your life today, to 10. You're already living this passion full out, like as wonderful as you could ever imagine it. So I like to use a very concrete example for how to give yourself a little credit. And I don't think this will be tricky for you at all, but for Andrew's benefit as well, watching this back. So I'll use dating, or like the ideal, perfect dream romance relationship, as the passion. So if I am Netflix and chilling every night with my bowl of ice cream or my chips and not doing anything in the world of dating, then I might be a 0. If I'm watching a lot of romantic comedies, I might give myself a 2. If I'm on a dating app, or 3 or 4, or maybe even attending meetups for singles or whatnot, then I might give myself a 4 or a 5. I'm kind of out there, but not really. If I'm actively dating different people, maybe I'm a 6 or a 7. If I'm in a dating relationship with someone, then I might be a 7 or an 8. And it only gets to that 10 when, like, it's so deeply fulfilling and joyful, and it matches my description or something better, right? And that's when it would be a 10. Like, it can't get any better than this. It's everything and more that I
Okay.
so with that in mind, okay, nice. Okay, so these are just showing you where you're at right now. And I always say, like, maybe in a month or 2 or 3 months after you've been putting this formula into action and choosing in favor of your passions, rescore them.
Okay.
And usually I'll reach out to you via email and just be like, hey, Kevin, time to rescore your passions. Right?
Yeah.
So that you can see where you're putting your attention, because if you start today putting your attention on these passions, your scores will increase. And
Mhm.
if you don't, or you put even less attention on them, your scores might stay the same or even decrease. So it's
Mhm.
really just a benchmark.
Okay.
Okay, so next is some really fun stuff. Next, we are going to talk about markers. And you're going to create markers for your passions. And to help you understand what a marker is, I'm going to tell you a story. This is one of my favorite stories from the passion test. So it's not one of mine. It's one of Janet and Chris's stories about someone named Pankaj Naram. Pankaj Naram he passed away a few years ago, I believe now, an Ayurvedic physician from India. Are you familiar with Ayurveda?
No.
Like they check your pulse, and it's the oldest medicine on the earth, basically, from India. And that's, so basically they're checking your pulse, and they're going with I don't know a lot about it, but Pankaj Naram was an Ayurvedic physician that Janet and Chris were friends with. And one day they went to visit him, and he was packing a bunch of legal pads and pencils, nice sharp pencils, in a little briefcase. And they asked him, Pankaj, are you going on a trip? What are you doing? He said, no, I'm not going on a trip. I'm going to plan the next 25 years of my life. And they said, oh, okay. And he said, let me tell you a story. 25 years ago, I was a nobody who knew nothing. And I was living in India, and I was so poor, I didn't even have enough rupees to take the bus. So I was walking everywhere. I was an Ayurvedic physician, but none of my patients were getting well. And one day I was walking and saw one of my former patients across the street, and he looked like the picture of perfect health. So I ran over to him and I said, did I do that? And the man looked at him and said, no, you didn't. And Pankaj said, well, then who? And the gentleman told him about this old Ayurvedic master who had healed him. And Pankaj asked him to take him to him. And so he did. This old master was already like 100 years old at the time and lived up on this mountain. And Pankaj ended up studying with him for several years. And a few years into his study with him, the old master asked Pankaj, if you could be anything in the world, what would it be? And Pankaj thought, well, that's a really big question, but he trusted his teacher. And so he felt into it, and he said, I would be the greatest Ayurvedic physician in the world. And his master said, okay, write it down. Now, Pankaj, if you were, or when you are, the greatest Ayurvedic physician in the world, what will have happened? Another tough question, right? What will have happened when I am the greatest Ayurvedic physician in the world? So he thought about it, and he said, I would have taken over 100,000 pulses. Okay, write it down. So he did. What else, Pankaj? I would be recognized by Mother Teresa for my work. Okay, write it down. Now notice he is not playing small here. He is like playing big time. And he wrote that one down. And then the teacher said, what else, Pankaj, would have happened when you are the greatest Ayurvedic physician in the world? And he said, I would have Ayurvedic centers all around the world. Okay, so Pankaj pauses in his story to Janet and Chris at this point, and he looks at them and he says, 25 years ago, I wrote all of that down. And since then, I've taken over 1 million pulses.
Wow.
I was recognized by Mother Teresa for my work with HIV patients. I have 14 centers around the world. And he was the Dalai Lama's personal Ayurvedic physician.
Wow.
So he looks at them and says, I wrote those things down and all of them came true. So now I'm going to go do that for the next 25 years. So
Wow.
your markers are the evidence that you're living that passion to a 10 or beyond, that absolute ideal. So your next step is to create 2 to 3 or more markers for each one of your passions, showing what it will really look like from an observer's perspective when you're living that passion to a 10. Now, some of yours are hard to see from the outside, right?
Yeah.
So consider when you're living from a deep personal relationship with God, how would I know? So, what would it look like from an observer point of view when you are living from a deep personal relationship with God? I might notice how peaceful it feels just to be around you,
Mhm.
right? And so it could be something like people tell me all the time that they just feel peaceful and relaxed in my presence.
Yeah.
And another one for those less concrete passions are people ask me all the time, how did you develop such a deeply personal relationship with God? Can you show me how? Right? A lot of my clients will have self-love as one of their passions because they don't feel it. And they'll ask me, how did you love yourself? Like, how did you start loving yourself? I don't know how. I don't know where to begin. And so that's one of my markers. Anytime a self-love thing will come up on my list, which it doesn't so much anymore because it's so fully in my life now, right? But 5 or 10 years ago, it totally wasn't. And so it would be on my list almost every time I took the passion test. And I redo my list about every 6 months to a year
Mhm.
because life changes, right? Things happen, our priorities shift. So markers are there when you're fully living the passion, not when you're on your way to it. So if being in a skyscraper in New York City is my passion, I'm not in Pennsylvania stopping for a beer, right?
Yeah.
I am at the Empire State Building, or I'm in, that famous park that I can't think of the name, Central Park.
Yeah.
Right? I'm already there. It's everything I could imagine. And as you noticed, and I pointed out, Pankaj did not play small. He really shot for the stars there. So when you're writing your markers, you really want to do the same, like that absolute ideal, not on your way, but all the way there.
Okay.
So share maybe what one of your markers would be for a passion or two.
Let's see here. Um, just being the presence of God each day, that people tell me the atmosphere shifts when I enter a room.
Oh, I like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good one. Really, really good. Really, really good. How about another one for any of your passions?
Let's see. Uh, let's see. Um, I'll say I'm writing I've written a book on the above.
Okay.
any one of those five or maybe all of those five. But there's a book showing people maybe how to achieve what I've achieved.
Beautiful.
So
And so
I'm the author of a book.
so is that the ideal? I'm the author of a book, or would it
Mm.
be my book ranks number one on spiritual reading all over the world, right?
Hmm.
So go bigger, right?
Okay, okay, okay,
Again, not what you'd settle for would be cool or okay, but like top notch markers here.
okay.
My
Yeah.
I'm interviewed on so many spiritual podcasts or Oprah Winfrey's Sunday Soul thing, right? Or
Okay.
really like feel into that and make it big, because that's a
All
good
right. Okay.
starting point. And so
Yeah.
that's where you're going to start. You're going to start, and this is, we'll finish much earlier than 3:33 today. So
Yeah.
um so I would encourage you to take some time when we do finish and try to write these down. Try to get at least a couple of them out for each passion, and then send them to me. When you feel like you've got your good 2 to 3 markers for each one, send them to me. So just like we did with your passions, I can tweak the language. Because
Okay.
again, you want to write it in the positive present tense as if it's happened or is happening.
Yeah.
And I always have to refer back to my notes just to make sure I don't forget anything else. Yeah, a well-written marker is when there's no question that it has occurred. And again, just remember, it's when you're all the way there, living that passion to a 10. So another way to feel into that is to maybe take a few minutes for each passion, just engage your senses and imagine your life like it will be when you're living that passion to a 10. One of the exercises in the passion test book is actually a day in the life, it's called. And you just write a paragraph or two for each passion. Yours very much overlap. And so your day in the life might be one day in the life with all your passions, or you might do a
Right.
day in the life with each passion. Also, any of those passions that didn't make it onto your top 5 or into your top 5, those can be markers too, right? So any of these, when you have a deeply personal relationship with God, maybe you are working on a team, or if you're in the like an adventure, I think that one would fit the adventure. I'm on an adventure with God each day, and one of the markers is I work with a team of people bringing forth the kingdom of God.
Yeah, that's good.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So any of those could potentially be markers.
Okay.
Any questions about markers?
No.
So the sooner you do this, the more likely you are to do it.
Okay.
So again, just maybe take some time after we get off this call to at least jot a few down, and then within a week or so, send them to me. I'll send you all your home play and your passions in order with scores in an email. And that way you can really keep immersing yourself in this new ideal life that you've created today.
Mhm.
And also make those passion cards. Okay. We're nearly the end because we didn't have lots of group activities, which would have added an hour to the time.
But they would have been fun.
I know, they would be fun. So workshops are great, but in-person ones are even better. So when it is probably next year, when it's like safe again to actually have a group, that's when I'll do a big in-person workshop. So how do you feel right now after all of this?
Let's see. It's kind of affirmation, like the 12 kind of came out pretty good, pretty easily. And I can be, very introspective. It could take me hours. So I was kind of surprised in about 10 minutes that I came up with a pretty good list that was pretty much in alignment with things that I already knew. So it kind of feels good when you're just kind of more affirming yourself. And I like the idea of writing out the markers. So I had a few thoughts on that. So definitely encourage, like, this is something that I want to do. And so definitely next couple of days I'll do that and have it to you by the following weekend.
Cool.
If not sooner, we'll see how it goes. But it may take a couple of days to kind of dwell on it before I actually send it out. So yeah, pretty encouraged about that, and yeah, just writing out those cards too, and being more purposeful in making decisions that align with those top five.
Nice. Yeah. So
Mhm.
do you remember the formula?
The formula. Okay, the formula was that the secret or
Yep, that was the 3 parts. So
okay? Oh,
intensity.
intention, attention, ease.
Yes. Good.
Okay,
And then what was the
okay.
secret? Oh,
Yeah.
quiz.
I'm looking at my notes here. I'm gonna go back and find. Oh my gosh, I got it. Whenever you're faced with a choice or opportunity, decide in favor of your passion.
Yes. Yes. Very
Okay.
good. Yes. So considering how you feel, your passions are clear, you've got your markers starting to flow, you're getting even clearer on what this ideal life will look like. And uh, I asked you to repeat those things because we really want to drill them into your head, because you can come to this workshop, right? And walk away thinking, well, that felt good and that was interesting and cool, and then forget all about it. And some
Right.
people
Not
do.
apply it. Hmm.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so what do you do now? Now you commit to this
Hmm.
process. If you really are committed to cultivating this ideal life that you've created today, it requires a daily commitment, as does any relationship, right? And this is your relationship with yourself and clearly with God. And so,
Hmm.
commitment. Um, Clarity is an ongoing process. So, you're kind of committing as well to this process of clarity through the markers getting even clearer. And then, as time goes on, rescoring your passions and getting even clearer on, well, now that this score is up to a 7, actually here's the marker that I want to see when this is a 10, right? Remember, attention, what you put your attention on grows stronger in your life. So the more attention you put on these passions, the more this will be present for you. Also, stay open. So staying open that this or something better is such an important piece in this. Allowing yourself to be guided, allowing for you specifically to really connect with God and allow yourself to be guided by God seems like for you such an integral part of this process.
Right.
And just stay open, you know, and remember that the how is none of your business. The how reveals itself through our consistent, imperfect actions,
Hmm.
right? So we don't have to figure out how we get this relationship with God. We choose to sit in silent prayer 5 minutes a day, or 10 minutes a day, or hours a day, whatever it is, whatever action you take, puts your attention on that passion, and the how shows up for you. Right? I didn't know how I was going to get to Florida to be a speaker. I just focused on the what. The how showed up for me. And especially as your passions are so related to the presence of God in your life and living from that spiritual aspect, this for you is even more important. This, right? Allowing and this trusting and this faith in this life that you're creating.
Yeah.
And then integrity, right? Integrity is about words matching deeds, right? And so we can feel when we're in alignment with what is the most important to us in our lives and when we're out.
Hmm.
And as you deepen, especially your spiritual relationship with yourself and with God, and yourself being your higher self, which is God,
Yeah.
then you will feel that. For me personally, after all of these years of practice, I feel it very concretely in my body when I'm in alignment or out of alignment. And
Hmm.
so it helps me to step right back on my path when it feels off and it feels a little like, oh no, I'm not walking my talk. You begin to really feel and identify when you're in integrity. And integrity can be really tricky, especially at the start of this, especially when you're choosing in favor of your own passions, no matter what anyone else says or thinks,
Hmm.
right? That's not easy. That is definitely a practice. You know, I remember when I first moved home and was suddenly a single mom, my own parents were like, just get a job, any job.
Yeah, I can see that.
Right. And so after some pressure, I was like, fine, I'll go to this stupid flower call job thing that's like they hire anybody. And I went there. And then in the middle of this orientation, I felt that like out of integrity, and I felt it so strongly. And I kind of heard in my head, you're doing it again. You're not trusting the process. This is not moving you closer to your passions. It's moving you further away. And so at the break, I thanked the gentleman and left.
Mhm.
And instead kept staying open to what did feel in integrity and what did move me closer to my passions. And that's how I ended up in senior living. Because even though it wasn't this business full time as I'm living it now, it was a step closer, and it felt inspired and it felt aligned with my passions, because my passions continually reflect inspiring others to lead more joyful lives, right?
Mhm.
And that definitely was aligned with being a director of life enrichment and senior living, and I loved that job. So integrity is such a vital piece for this, and not judging yourself when you step out of integrity, noticing when you do, and then having that self-compassion and forgiveness, just like God would and
Mhm.
does, and then stepping back on your path. And then this is one of my favorite, is persistence. We, on this path of creating an ideal life and creating a life that we truly deeply love, we must be persistent. If we give up, it doesn't happen. And this
Yeah.
persistence also requires courage. And it requires a lot of courage to persistently return back to the path when we've stepped off of it. It requires a lot of courage to say yes to ourselves before we say yes to others. It requires a lot of courage to commit to this process and to surround ourselves with the people who support it, not just the people that we know.
Yeah.
Right. So persistence. And remember too that as you practice choosing in favor of your passions, that's a habit that you're developing. And
Mhm.
habits take a long time to form, on average around 70 days for
Okay.
action to become an actual way of being and a habit. So it might feel really hard for a few weeks, and then it might start to feel easier, and then easier and easier. But it's really like 3 months or so of constant practice that it
Yeah.
becomes a new way of being. And I would say for this whole process, even a little bit longer, because
Mhm.
life throws us challenges, and it's up to us to step into those challenges with courage and commitment and persistence, or let ourselves be swayed.
Yeah.
And so it's always a matter of just, it's okay if we go off track, but stepping back on it and being aware.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then when all else fails, follow your heart.
Mhm. Okay.
So passion emerges from the heart, not the mind. And so whenever you get into a moment where you're not sure what to do, where you're not sure what to choose or where to go, then you simply tap back into that heart,
Okay.
which I believe is that higher voice of spirit guiding us.
Mhm.
So God speaks to us through our hearts and through all sorts of other wonderful signs that when we ask, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, so we've kind of reached the closing here. Um, so just a reminder, I'll send you an email with all the things I've said or something I want to remind you of and for you to do and remember. I'll set a note to myself to invite you to rescore in a few months. I encourage you to buy the book, and I'll include a link to that as well, which would give me like, I don't know, 50 cents affiliate fee if you buy it through my link.
Okay.
You get
All
it
right.
everywhere. And remember also that Harris Interactive study that I mentioned in the beginning, and I don't think I mentioned that it was Harris, but be that 20% of people who really love their lives and love what they do in their life.
Mhm.
And and this work too, Kevin, is such a part of all of your passions. Like this, I am doing God's work, right? I am
Mhm.
living this passion, and depending on who I'm talking to, I might not call it spiritual work, but
Right.
it is that work. And so if you were ever also interested in doing a passion test certification, if that at all is like, oh, I feel like that would be good for me, let me know.
Yeah. Okay.
Those happen now and then, and I'd obviously want you to go through me
Yeah.
if you decided to do that. And I don't usually mention that to people because I don't think everybody is meant for it, but it aligns with what you are bringing into the world through your beautiful spirit. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, that's all I have for you. Do you have any questions?
Okay. Well, I think I'm pretty good. I got a few assignments,
Yeah.
but not very difficult.
Nope.
Very doable, easy next step. So,
Yeah, perfect. Good. Well, I will spend the next few minutes sending you an email, and then you take it from there, and we'll check in with each other in maybe a couple of weeks and see how you're doing.
okay, excellent. Yeah, and I'll have my list of markers to you by the weekend.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
If you have any questions while you're doing them, just shoot me an email.
Okay.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor guiding you through this process, Kevin. Thank you. You're
Thank you.
welcome.
God bless you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.